Hello again, y'all. Welcome back. Comic Kid here again, and today we are saying nice things about New Mutants 2020. Now, this movie was originally, as many of y'all know, supposed to come out like years before 2020, and it kept getting delayed and kept getting delayed, and then there were reshoots, and then they went back, and I believe the one they released was the original version of the film. I could be wrong there. The movie was just in development hell for so long that, all these rumors started to come out about it, and so it was just a mess. And I don't think it was supposed to be the last Fox X-Men film. If I'm not mistaken, it was supposed to be out right before Dark Phoenix, but because of all the issues happening with it, it ended up being the last Fox X-Men related Marvel movie. Now, to cover some of the bad things about it, a lot of people criticized it for its overly dark tone, especially for this group of characters, comic inaccuracy, kind of flimsy plot, and cheesy moments. Now, I actually just watched this film for the first time, and I actually didn't hate it. But before we get into some of the nitty-gritty of some of the good things it gets done, I did want to take a sec to thank my friends over at the True Criminals podcast. If you guys like true crime podcasts and want one with a totally unique spin, I would definitely give them a shot. They're available on Spotify, Apple, and a bunch more, and they're just hilarious guys. I help them out with a few of their projects, and so be sure to give them a shot if you like true crime podcasts, or just comedy podcasts. Either works. And then, as always, make sure you hit like and subscribe with me just to keep up with all the latest stuff that I post. Really helps out the channel. But we'll go ahead and get started with New Mutants. Now, as I mentioned, this was my first time watching this movie. I kept delaying it just because I really didn't care, and based on the just atrocious reviews that I heard for it, I really had no interest in seeing it. But it was put on HBO Max not too long ago, and I had some extra time, and I figured, why not? And honestly, I did not hate this movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't absolutely love it, and it is far from the best Fox X-Men film, but I also feel like it's not their worst. The beginning and end especially were just incredibly cheesy, and I felt like they were really kind of just so distant from the middle chunks of it that it really kind of didn't hook me in as well as it could have, and it also ended a bit underwhelmingly as well. But I really feel like the middle was actually a really, really solid concept. It just didn't quite come together in the way that it really needed to. Now, obviously, you have an incredibly strong cast, especially with Anya Taylor-Joy as Magic. I had known who she was before Queen's Gambit, and I think she made for a great Magic, at least in what they built within this universe. There are still a few gripes that I had about how her character was portrayed, but I thought Anya Taylor-Joy still fit the character very well, and definitely looked a lot like Magic as well. Then of course you have Maisie Williams as Wolfsbane, and I love Maisie Williams. I didn't even care for Game of Thrones that much. I just think she's an incredible actress, especially given how young she is. And so yeah, I think most people can agree that the casting was really solid in this movie. It's just that it's the way they were portrayed that a lot of people, especially comic fans, might have had some issues with. But overall, you do get the sense that there's some good bonds between this cast of characters, and it kind of felt a little like Breakfast Club if it were a horror movie, but I also think that's kind of what hurt it. At times, the film didn't really seem like it knew what it wanted to be and which direction it wanted to go. And so I do think the tonal shifts and narrative structure of it could have been significantly stronger. That said, when it did get around to the horror stuff, I actually thought the horror elements were really well done. Everything did look appropriately creepy, and I'm pretty hard to scare in general, so it's hard for me to judge a horror movie based on how scary it is. But I feel like if you're a horror fan, you would probably enjoy this movie as well. And I did like that they tried to kind of explore other places within the superhero movie genre. That said, these may not have been the characters to try and do that with, but I mean, it's still a unique idea and something I wish a few other comic book movies would try to explore as well. Now, as far as like the graphics and stuff go, I don't really judge movies on graphics, y'all probably know that by now, but I mean, I thought everything looked fine in terms of that. There were definitely some weaker moments, and you of course have the massive comic book CG fight at the end. And so, yeah, overall, like, not the worst graphics or CG that I've ever seen, and not the best either. You can tell they definitely spent more money in certain, like, scenes and characters than they did in others, but I mean, what you gonna do? Now, we know Fox was kind of building towards Mr. Sinister, and that had their movie line continued, they'd have probably gotten to establishing him as like the new big bad. But this movie is really when you get a sense that he's finally starting to have a presence in this particular universe. As many of y'all know, the hospital the kids are at is run by Mr. Sinister, and that he's using the mutants for some sort of sinister purpose. And so I am a little upset that we'll never get to see what their plans were for the character. That said, I feel like Magneto is really the only solid X-Men villain we got from the Fox X-Men movies, aside from, like, arguably William Stryker as well. But, I mean, Mr. Sinister's never been done on the big screen before, so hopefully Marvel will get around to that themselves. Now, overall, despite the problems with this movie, if you kind of disconnect from the comics and other things like that, I really didn't think it was that bad. And I've talked to plenty of other like hardcore X-Men fans, and they said that, yeah, by now especially people should kind of know what to expect from Fox, and so they didn't quite get all the hate for the movie. Again, they didn't love it, they weren't walking around saying it was the best X-Men movie ever, but it's certainly not the worst. I definitely preferred it over Last Stand and Dark Phoenix especially, and probably X-Men Apocalypse. I don't know, I'd probably have to rewatch it. So there is that. I do feel like this is a bit of a shorter video, but I mean, there's not much that can be said in defense of this movie, aside from the fact that it's not as bad as you may have heard. But that is everything that I have for you guys today. Thank y'all so much for watching. As always, be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I will see y'all again real soon.